All right, we're live.
How's it going, everybody? Today's episode is really special. You know him as Jerry from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a film that basically defined the horror genre. We are honored to. Sorry, sorry about that, zombie. Um, we are honored to be joined by Alan. How do you pronounce your last name, Alan?
Danziger.
Sorry,
Da-
Danziger.
Danziger. Perfect. Perfect.
Well, Alan, welcome to the show. How are you this evening?
Having the time of my life. Happy to be with you.
We're glad to have you. I'm Nick, by the way, obviously, and my buddy Zombie and my other buddy Andrew.
Yeah.
So I have like to start off with a question with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Can you tell us how you met Toby Hooper and how you got involved with his movie Eggshells a few years prior?
Yeah, well, I was living on a street off of what is now MLK. It's 19th Street or MLK. And the downstairs neighbors were Sally Richardson and her boyfriend, Jim Schulman. And Sally knew Toby. She was working with him on this movie, Eggshells. And Eggshells is basically what I refer to as like a hippy dippy psychedelic type of movie. And ostensibly, it was about, I guess, a mystical supernatural force in the house that this couple were living in, David and Amy. And it turns out they were both doing volunteer work with me. My background is in social work. I was not an actor. I'm still not an actor. And you read some of the reviews, you'll understand why. But anyway, they knew that David and Amy were working with me, and so Toby said, "Can we shoot a scene with you at your house?" At the time, I was married. My son is like 8 months old, and I said, "Sure." So they came over and they shot a scene. And I think they even started a fire in my apartment, but that's another story. Anyway, I guess they liked, how it came across. It was what we call cinema verite, meaning there is no script. They just come over and they shoot whatever is happening at that time.
Yeah.
So we shot the scene, and then they said, "Can we shoot another scene?" And as it turns out, I'm in pretty much the whole movie. And interesting thing in that movie is there's a scene. In fact, the scene is at the as I go into the house at the stairway. Uh, Kim Hinkle in that movie is named. They call him Toes, and he's reading poetry, to me, and to me it's just a lot of gibberish, and I'm looking around like, how the hell do I get out of this situation? And I uttered the line, "Are you talking to me?" 7 years before Robert De Niro, said that line in Taxi Driver. I got no props for that, and I'm still to this day trying to see if I can get somebody to take it on. Pro bono, Sonny Bono, Perry Como, any Bono. But it hasn't happened. I don't think it will happen. So I'm moving on from there. But anyway, because of Eggshells, the movie comes out and nobody saw that movie. My parents have probably 30 people that saw that movie. So uh, about 4 years go by. In the meantime, my background is in social work, and I'm running a camp for kids with mental challenges or emotional challenges. And I get a call, and I don't know. It's so long ago, it's 51 years ago. I don't know if it was Toby, if it was Kim, or if it was Bob Burns, but somebody called me and said, "Alan, we wrote this script," and the working title then was Leatherface. They had two titles. One was Leatherface, the other was Head Cheese. Both of them
Mm.
didn't make it, which is good. And so I went by, they gave me the script, I went home, and I was just mesmerized. I mean, I read the thing in about a couple of hours. I had the door closed. I mean, I was frightened after reading that script, and I just said, "Okay, you know, uh, what do I have to lose?" You know what I mean? It's a gamble, but I said I would do it, and that's how it started.
Now that's part of film history now.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who would
Because
have thunk that 51 years ago that I've taken that 15 minutes and I've stretched it now into 51 years, and I got new movies that I'm doing stuff. So here I'm in Geezerville and I'm having the time of my life.
it's awesome. It's awesome.
So
Now I know filmmaking so now is totally different from when you guys filmed. So Texas, you guys filmed in the summer. What was it like on the set? Like how because when I my favorite thing about watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is after you finish it, you feel so like gross and dirty from watching it, right? So it does a good job at that. So how was it like actually being on set and filming
Just
that?
just the way you're describing it, I mean, it was brutal. We're talking about Texas in the summer, July, August, and in that van, no air conditioning, the windows up, Toby, the sound guy, another guy, Toby with a stogie like a Eric von Stroheim type of dude, and we're having to recite our lines and whatnot. It was brutal, but like I said, for me, having not studied, I loved every minute of it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It was just something. It was like a happening for me. So, and truthfully, the real stuff that took place that was just completely obnoxious or was inside the house. Around the table at the dinner scene, because you had rotting bones, you had rotting meat, you had Gunner's costume where nobody even wanted to get within 500 yards of this guy. As I said, all the Febreze couldn't take the smell out of what was going on. And and basically for me, I just was in that house to get whacked, So
Yeah.
I wasn't there long, and that, so I don't have that kind of memory of wow. But people were throwing up, truthfully, and even Gunner threw up a couple of times. So it wasn't a pleasant shoot. I remember it as having the time of my life, but everybody else that you talk to, it was brutal. You couldn't do some of the stuff that they did back then. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
People got hurt. Uh, there's a scene where uh, the hitchhiker is cutting Marilyn's finger, and it was supposed to be fake. Well, after so many takes, they said enough of it. They actually cut her finger, and Grandpa is actually sucking blood out of her finger, which I guess was a turn on back then. It probably would be a turn on now. But it all lends itself to the myth or whatever that this is really the movie. So you feel it. I mean, we're sweating as take after take after take. I just found out just recently that some of the footage that they shot of the van, I think the lens cap wasn't off on one of those. So they had to throw out footage. It was a rough shoot, but it's like it all comes together, in the post and the editing and the name change to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was brilliant. And now here it is. I mean, we're in MoMA. Guillermo del Toro, says it's one of the greatest movies. There's
Hmm.
there's there's a documentary called Chain Reactions. It's got Patton Oswalt, Stephen King, and they just go on extolling how great this movie was.
Yeah.
So
I
what are you gonna
believe
do?
Quentin Tarantino said it was like one of the best films
He
ever.
called it a perfect film,
Yeah.
and Toby called me in. This is my memory of just to see some of the rushes, and he asked me. He said, "Alan, what do you think I could do, to improve the movie?" And I stupidly said, "Have the seats facing away from the screen," and he didn't like that. Never called me back. Never called me back.
that's amazing. So, Alan, what can you tell us a story that maybe not so many people know of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I mean, I'm sure people have heard dozens and dozens of behind the scenes stories and so forth, but what's something that lodges in your mind that's like, I'm going to remember that 50 years from now? And yeah.
Well, just some of the things like, and I have told is the scene where we're pulling into the gas station,
Mhm.
and Jim Seedow comes over, and says that he has no gas, and I'm looking at it like, what the heck? I mean, what do you mean you have no gas? And and then the troll looking guy that comes around, wash the windows.
Yeah.
It turns out he was a dear friend of Marilyn's,
Oh, wow.
and
Mhm.
that's how he got the job. And I just found out. I mean, he died at a young age. I think it was like 36 or 30. He died very early. But during that scene, he's putting that soapy water because it's still one of my favorite scenes. I inadvertently hit the windshield wiper, and it just splashed all this soapy water on Jim Sedow, who is truly like the only really professional actor of all of us. And, and he's trying to deliver his lines, and soap is coming down his face. I mean, it was impossible, for Bill Bale, Kirk, and myself. The girls were at the Coke machine, so they didn't see that. And take after take after take, we just couldn't. I just couldn't hold it together. I mean, we were gone,
Yeah.
and Toby eventually got real upset. He walked off, and I think Toby had to finish that scene. Uh, Another thing is that there's a scene. It works where Franklin is downstairs, in the wheelchair, and he's hearing us giggling and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and that whole scene is we're making up stuff. There was no lines, there's no dialogue, and we're just ad-libbing and stuff like that, and people remember that as one of their favorite scenes. I thought it was really ridiculous myself, but but it works. But it works.
That's
That's
amazing. Amazing. So I know you just mentioned, we'll go back a little bit, that you mentioned there was, before the Texas Chainsaw Massacre got its title, there was two. So how did it land on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Well, the fellow that came up with that was a fellow by the name of Warren Scarron,
Yeah.
and Warren ended up being the head of the film commission, in Texas, and he came up with that title, I think, over a poker game or a card game, and he ended up calling, I think, Kim in the middle of the night and said, "I've got the title. I've got the title," and truthfully, it was brilliant. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And wherever I go, even people who've not seen the movie, when I mention or they find out that I was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a smile comes on their face, and they want to, take pictures. There's something about this movie. It just captures people even today. And when I go to these Comic Cons, and I run into fans and whatnot, and they have like a 5 or 6 year old son who's watched the movie. I find that troubling myself, because I mean, I took my son uh, to see it. Back then, it was the Village Four. Now it's the Alamo Draft House in Austin. And I just wanted him to see his dad in the coming attractions. He's 5, and that's 51 years ago. He's still in weekly therapy. So that wasn't a smart move on my part.
Oh wow.
It's amazing. Nick, you got a question?
Yep. Let's see. Did you even think at the time that the movie would be as, successful as it is now
Absolutely
compared to
not. I
how?
don't think, and I don't think any of us did. I mean, some of us didn't think it was going to come out, you know, and even when it did come out, I mean, we were all blown away. I think what happened, that movie really came together, in my estimation, in post production. I mean, the what do you call it, the cemetery scene, I think that happened after the movie was finished. They just added stuff. They came up with that name, and Warren Scarron, I found this out, was responsible for that opening scene where you see the melting body,
Yep.
at the cemetery. He came up with that.
Wow.
He made that. And then the fellow by the name of Ron Perryman, who was the brother of Lou Perryman, who was a grip on Chainsaw, and then ended up, he was in Chainsaw 2, and also he starred in the two movies, the Last Night at the Alamo,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole shooting match, which was directed by Eagle Pinnell, who was a brilliant guy, but unfortunately passed away, I think, because of alcoholism.
Oh wow.
And there's stories about that. But anyway, yeah, it's amazing how things, it's like catching lightning in a bottle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, people think that they see things that they don't see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people will swear they see that hook coming through Pam's
Yep.
chest, but all of that stuff is greatly responsible for, is Bob Burns,
Yep.
and the more I read and think about it, the guy was a genius, and
Wow.
probably doesn't get enough credit. He's an honorary guy, very, very different kind of guy, strange sense of humor, but all of those things, the armadillos, the dead bones, all of that. He's responsible for that whole look. The bone chairs. It's an amazing guy. Amazing guy.
So what I know they do it a lot now in film. So, I know they just filmed the remakes of It, and they try to keep Bill Skarsgård away from the actors while he was in costume.
Mm.
So when they first seen him, they, took it all in. Did they do that? Did they try to do that with Gunnar as Leatherface, or did you see him roaming
Yeah.
around set?
No. 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 And in fact, again, I talked about, but when it came from me to get whacked, it
Yeah.
was they waited, for the perfect time where the sun is setting. I mean, the movie is beautifully shot, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's responsible is for Daniel Pearl, who went on to an incredible career in music videos and
Hmm.
stuff like that, and he shot everybody from Mariah Carey to Ed Sheeran to Bruce Springsteen. Anyway, the guy, and he also came up with the shot that everybody talks about from Oliver Stone to Steven Spielberg is the shot where Pam is sitting on that, on that in that swing bench,
Yep.
and then heads to the house and the dolly shot from underneath the swing. They all want to know how that was. And as she's walking, there's a tight shot of her whatever derriere, to keep it clean. And then the house starts getting bigger, and that was Daniel Pearl's idea.
Yeah.
And the suits didn't want that shot to happen because it wasn't on the shot list or whatnot. And Toby said, "Well, you can fire us, but we're going to do that shot." And
Wow.
as it's one of the iconic shots now in that kind of that kind of lore,
Yeah.
horror lore or whatever movies.
Wow. Oh, is there any props from Texas Chainsaw Massacre that you still have, or didn't you even think about that like 50 years ago? Like I'm gonna say,
well,
I
well,
mean,
that's a sore subject. Because in one of the scenes, early scenes in the van, when that big semi goes by and Franklin ends up, falling off of the chair and whatnot. He's
yeah,
supposed to be taking a whiz in one of those cans.
yeah,
Uh, Ron Bozeman was the production guy on them, and he said, "Alan, can I borrow your shirt? He's blonde. It's a faraway shirt. That nobody's going to know. That's my favorite shirt." I said, "Okay," and I never got that shirt back.
oh no way.
So I hated him for about 50 years, but I had to let it go. He's an elderly guy now. He has memory loss. He's really a sweet guy. So, but that shirt would be worth a lot of money. However, uh, a terrific fan by the name of David Munoz found a bolt of fabric similar to what I wore in the movie, and he sent that fabric down to me, and I had a shirt made. So for some Comic Cons, when they really want the full Monty, I've worn that shirt.
That's
Awesome.
awesome.
And what
Yeah.
about the van? Do you have a replica of
Yeah,
the van?
that's you're asking the right questions, guys. uh, a few years ago, it's like Christmas. And I'm just scrolling, there's all these chainsaw fan clubs,
Yeah,
and I'm scrolling through, and all of a sudden I see a picture of a van. It's up on blocks, it's green and white, and then there's a phone number on the van, and a fan says, "That looks just like the chainsaw van."
yeah.
And so I said, "Okay, I'm killing time. What the heck?" So I called the number. Fella answers the phone. He said, "This is Scott Key." And just, out of the blue, I just said, "By any chance, are you related to Francis Scott Key?" And he says, "As a matter of fact, I am. He's my great, 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 whatever, uncle." And I can't believe it. So I didn't ask him to sing a verse or two of the Star Spangled Banner. But I said, "Has anybody bought that van?" He said, "I've gotten a lot of calls, but nothing's materialized." I said, "Well, I'm the OG. I think I'm gonna have to buy that van." And the price was all right because he just said it needed just it needed a new gas tank. Oh, it needed a lot more than a new gas tank. And about $25,000 later. But
Oh,
anyway, he drove it down to Austin, and I took it to my mechanic and put in a new motor and all of that. And then I took it to McCoy's Custom here in Austin. They did the interior, and we've got the blood stain on it. And the key is that sliding door. You
Mhm.
can't find that.
oh,
Uh, and I had it painted, and then the fan said, "That's not the right color, Alan." I had to have it painted again. I
oh,
mean,
wow.
the fans, they got to have it right.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it is right now, and I've done some more work on it. But wherever I go, people are honking. It's like a prop. When I've taken it out to Hooper's in Kingsland, where the house that we did all of that is residing, it's like a prop. People come over, they want to take selfies, they want to take pictures, and right now I even have Franklin residing in the van.
I saw him in the picture on your Instagram. I mean, that's amazing. That's so
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
No,
Hey,
I'm going for it. You know what I mean? If you're going to do it, you do the best that you can, and fans love it. And
exactly.
uh, and I get a kick out of it that after all these years, that people still want to talk to me. And when I go to these Comic Cons, I'm sitting at a table. A lot of times I feel like a hooker in Amsterdam because they don't know who I am, and they say, "Well, were you at the movie?" I said, "Yeah." What am I here for? What am I, the Maytag repairman? Of course. And but once they make the connection, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. We also seen you have your own bobblehead.
Yeah, yeah, it's a Chainsaw Jerry. I'm like a cross between Saturday Night Fever and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's a lot of fun. So people can go on my website, which is chainsawjerry.com, and they can order T-shirts, photos, and bobbleheads, and I even have somebody made a Leatherface bath bomb. So if you've ever wanted to shower or take a bath with Leatherface, this is your time.
Oh,
Uh,
that's awesome.
That's cool.
And the greatest thing about these movies, you know, I know you didn't know it in the beginning, but 50 years later is now that you get to do all the conventions and you get to meet all these crazy fans and you can sell all the merchandise for the food. So it ends up benefiting you in the long run.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Although the first Comic Con that I did, and I just found the tape of it, and it was like I almost started crying because I'm sitting there, I'm between Gunnar and Paul Partain, and we're talking about it. And originally, when Gunnar approached, he'd been doing this for several years, so he had the monopoly on it. And he said, Alan, they want to do a reunion. I think it was like a 30-year reunion, and they'd like you to come. And I said, I don't know. My background is in social work. I said, I don't know about that. Who am I going to be meeting? Serial killers, or wannabes? I mean, what? And how wrong was I? Because these were absolutely the nicest people from all walks of life, from doctors and lawyers and dentists to tattoo artists, musicians and whatnot. They just loved that genre, and and it's just something else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think horror has one of the most loyal fan bases out of any
Unbelievable.
genre of film.
Especially
Yeah,
these days.
yeah,
Yeah.
and once they love you or they love a movie, that's it. They're the bomb. They're actually the bomb.
Yeah.
And just to hear them, when we go, when wherever we go. And I just recently, about a year ago, I was in Japan with John Dugan, who plays Grandpa, and now he doesn't need the makeup. You know what I mean? But wherever we went, we were in some crazy places and some toy stores, and when we got there, and then there was only standing room, but we got a standing room ovation. There were no chairs, so they were all standing. But you got to take an ovation. But the place was packed, and they all wanted to have get our autograph or photo or whatnot. That was great, as well as when I we went to the smallest theater in Japan. I think only 15 seats, and when they showed clips of it, and then we did a Q&A, and we had a translator. When we told our stories, they all laughed at the same place. So funny is funny, no matter what language.
Yeah. You ever think about taking the van, you spent all this time and money into and bringing it to conventions for people to see?
I have brought it up to, within the reason. I think I could do it probably within 150 or 200 miles. I brought it up to Dallas. I brought it down to Houston. I bought the bench that was at the gas station in Bastrop, and it's a beautiful metal bench, and it's got all the people, little plaques of all the people that have passed away. What
oh,
you didn't see is under coming attractions next to it was my face and name. So I did away with that coming attractions. That's a joke. That's a joke. But anyway, I brought it down to Houston. A friend of mine, Tad Wood, is a big Chainsaw fan, and that bench resides, and people can make donations, to, and that's going to, against violence. Families of in Uvalde, where the kids, were killed. We raised money for that. So I feel like I'm doing a good thing that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
You
absolutely. Beautiful. Nick?
I have a question. I know, like in one of the documentaries I watched years ago, you guys talked about how you guys kind of got like screwed with the guy who the whatever company it was. I think it was um a guy named Butchie.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. That's true. I mean, here the movie comes out, and I'm cutting out all these articles from Variety, and the movie beat out Bruce Lee's Return of the Dragon or Enter the Dragon or the Dragon is leaving, and it's making a killing, and all of us, I'm saying, wow, I cannot believe this. I hit the brass ring, second time out. I'll be in a retirement mode, and it's all good. And then we find out that Bryanston,
Mm-hmm.
the distributors, were mafia. So the real massacre took place after the movie. And when I think the first royalty check I got, I could go to McDonald's. That's I said there's something wrong with this picture, and the movie's bringing in millions. But the mafia took care of that, and then it took years for Vortex, the company that
Yep.
Kim Hinkle and with lawyers to finally get the movie back. But by that time, a lot of it was gone. But still, we do get some checks, and it's handled a lot better now. And it's
Mm.
just a cautionary tale. I'm not the only one. Everybody's got a story about how they got shafted.
Yeah.
And the early part. I remember reading something about James Garner felt that way with the Rockford Files. You
Ah.
know that didn't get any royalties, so it's a common thing. But hopefully, it's getting better. Hopefully, it's
You look
getting.
at nowadays, like movies and TV shows, you get like millions and millions, especially for a show just for like one guest star episode. You get like so many millions.
Right, right, right. And I'm hoping because I've got a new movie out now. It's called The Weed Hacker Massacre. It's a
Yep.
horror comedy, and and you can watch it on Tubi, on YouTube. It's on a bunch of other platforms. So I'm hoping that, and my name's up there as a producer, and I play a
Hmm.
sheriff. I
Yep.
play Sheriff Dancing Shoes. So the line I used to say is, once you stop laughing, you'll start screaming. But so far, people are really getting the kick out of it and having a good time. So, hopefully there'll be a couple of bucks in it at the end.
I
Hmm.
actually just watched that last week. It was pretty good.
Good.
I mean, because I remember I saw your name on the credits, and then I saw you do the cameo in a couple parts as the retired sheriff.
Right. And the funny part, that name, Dancing Shoes, is an homage to a friend of mine, Ralph McElroy, who I met here in Austin. And I love the guy because when my parents came over to visit, my dad's from Russia, my mother's from Polish, and Ralph spoke Russian to my dad, and he was just so sweet. And whenever I would go over to his place, he had trouble pronouncing Danziger. He would say, "Here comes Sheriff. Here comes Alan Dancing Shoes." So that's an homage to my friend Ralph, and people get a kick out of that. So it's
Out
funny.
of curiosity, how do you feel about A24 getting the rights for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I'm hoping for the best. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I've talked to them. I think Glenn Powell is
Yep.
connected with that. I think he's a really good actor. He seems like a good guy from everything I've said. So you just hope for the best. You know,
Hmm.
it's out of my you know pay grade or jurisdiction or have anything to say. So
Have you watched any of the other sequels or?
yeah, yeah. No, I watched the one with Jennifer Beal. I,
Hmm.
I I
Yep.
was at the premiere here of the Netflix movie,
Okay.
and I met David Blue Garcia, and that was shot in Bulgaria of all places.
I know, I know, I know. It's
And
great.
and I thought some of the kills were good. Another thing, I enjoyed some of the 3D Chainsaw movie, and I tell people that I got more money for not being in the movie than I got for being in the movie.
Oh
You
wow.
know, just how it worked. You know, they used clips of all of us getting killed in the
Yeah.
3D movie. So, and I just got a check from them for 4 cents.
Oh,
Nice.
Four
that's
cents.
amazing.
Don't spend it
Amazing.
in one spot.
Yeah.
It's the film that keeps on giving. Not a lot, but it keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So,
I forgot. I'm sorry. God, Drew.
so you're a fan of the franchise, the direction it took, the remakes, the reboots. Uh,
Not all of it. Some, some were, ridiculous. Some were way over the top. But some I've enjoyed. And to the fact that people see those and then they compare it to the original, and it works. You know what I mean? It just how much ours holds up even after 50 years. We
Mhm.
didn't use any CGI. There's no special effects.
yeah,
It is what you see, and I think that's what's so neat about this movie. It's almost like it's a documentary.
yeah,
You know what I mean? The characters are believable. You know, none of us, were named. Many of us still aren't named. But and the other thing is that Gunner, who played Leatherface, in my mind, it took a very intelligent person to play that part. There are no words and whatnot. It's just his presence and just how he carried himself. And truthfully, Gunner was a very bright, very intelligent. He was a poet. He was a writer, and although I didn't know him until after the movie, because by however it turned out, we stayed away, and I purposely didn't have the time to hang out because I was running a camp. But after the movie came out and whatnot, Gunnar and I became very good friends. In fact, he stayed with me this summer before he moved to Maine.
wow.
Oh, it's nice. I
You
didn't
know,
know he
so
moved to Maine.
yeah, so we got to be real good friends, and it was just a blow when he passed away. Because we were at a convention in Austin at Emo's uh, months before he passed away, and he looked good and whatnot. We were all in a great mood, and it was shocking. It was shocking.
And there, I mean, 50 years later, I mean, there's only a handful of characters left from the movie. I mean, it must be tough, like going through, conventions. You went through the movie, you went through conventions, and then, they disappear. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're right. In fact, when I almost started crying when I watched this Cinema Wasteland, because on that panel, there's the only two that are left is Ed Neal, the hitchhiker, and myself that are still walking the planet. And and
And Dugan.
Bob
Yeah.
Burns is
Oh,
gone, Gunner is gone, Marilyn is gone,
Yeah.
Jim Sedow is gone, the troll looking guy. I mean, everybody. I say we're a vanishing breed. You want to get us while I'm still not drooling or in diapers yet. So
Yeah. I think
it's amazing.
is the only three that's left. Is it you, Ed, and
No, no, no.
John?
Terry and Bill, myself, Ed, and John Dugan, Grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far
Yeah.
as in front of the camera, yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very sad. You go through this whole thing together, and it's such iconic, and then you lose your friends, and that sucks.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, none of us are are in great health. I mean, some of us had quintuple bypass. I've had my left hip, my right knee replaced. I'm going on a bionic type of thing going.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
This might be a tough question. I don't even know if there is an answer. But do you have any idea why Toby Hooper never returned for TCM 3?
No,
No.
no. He went on to, he did TCM 2,
Hmm.
and then he got involved with Salem's Lot, Poltergeist,
Yeah.
and he was a very complex guy, and he had his own demons,
Mm.
and some drug induced or whatever. So uh, who knows? But he shows some brilliance.
Yeah.
If you watched Eggshells, he did a documentary with Peter, Paul, and Mary,
Mm.
and but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just is it, and if that's his legacy. It's still a great legacy, and I mean, Oliver Stone hired Ed Neal for that JFK. Steven Spielberg, uh, Dottie Pearl, who was married to Daniel, worked on that movie, And when Steven Spielberg found out that Daniel Pearl had been her husband, he wanted to meet him, and they ended up in a trailer, talking about the shots. And Daniel tells the story where John Belushi's sitting there, and he's going nuts because he's not the center of attention, and he starts having a fight with himself, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
From the original movie into part two is the craziest a sequel ever. It's like almost not even. No, it's not the same movie.
Yeah.
It's all like the original one has the first one has the seriousness and the grittiest, and then the second one is like over the top, funny.
Yeah, I thought that myself. I really didn't. I didn't care for it. I like the humor in the original. There's some funny stuff
Yeah.
in the original, like look what your brother did to the door. You think this is a party, you know, uh, or that's the last goddamn hitchhiker I'm gonna pick up. I mean, he knows where you live. I gave him your zip code, that kind of stuff. And those are ad lib lines because
Yeah.
I couldn't. I didn't know astrology at all. I didn't know a Sagittarian from a vegetarian. So they just ended up saying, "Well, go ahead, Al, just make it up. Just make up the stuff," and it worked. What are you going to do?
Jerry was such a dickhead to Franklin too.
Well, do you blame him? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know.
hey,
Annoying, but
we all hated him. I mean, how many movies can you think of where a guy who's in a wheelchair, you hate him? You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh, you hate him for the first second. Always complaining. He cuts himself. I mean,
Yeah.
he's amazing. I mean, all the characters are amazing in the movie, but
Yeah,
like
I just saw. I
you
think it
tear
was a couple of weeks ago. This comedian named Tim Wilson. He does a hilarious, like 2 minute riff on Chainsaw. It's the funniest. I mean, every time I watch it, I go crazy. It's so funny. If you got a chance, you gotta find it.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll definitely check it out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Oh
he refers to us, as this band of hippies, driving down with the guy in the wheelchair who he says is crippled. He says back then it was 1974. They weren't handicapped back then. It was crippled.
You cripple, yeah.
Yeah, it's he does the riff. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
That's funny.
that's amazing.
Amazing.
So
Nick,
so
oh,
you go back to producing now. What's that like compared to acting? Do you enjoy producing films more than acting? I know you're still in cameos, but
Well, the producing thing is because Ray Spivey, who I like to say really took me off of the whatever happened to or the one hit wonders. I met him and he was kind enough. He said, "Alan, I'd like to write a scene for you." His first movie was a Storage Locker, and so
Mhm.
I did that, and that seemed to come out okay. And then we went on a bunch of other different trips and stuff, and I threw out some ideas about my character and because I had that hair, it could stop a bullet, and that triggered him off into a whole other genre, where we throw in a lot of stuff, about a group of kids going to a music festival, then they get ripped off, and then murder and mayhem ensue. There's a lot of comedy in it, but there's a lot of black humor in Chainsaw, and and but I think a lot of it was going to be a sort of a spoof, but then they realized that they had something here, and so they played it more for the horrific aspects to it, even though there's some Keystone Cops going on, with Leatherface, and I don't know, it's just like a happenstance or like a dream, and it just worked.
do you get a lot of people that reach out to you to be a part of their projects now?
It's lately, yeah, I'm getting calls. In fact, I'm shooting a movie in about a week with raised. It's called Soul Hoarder. It's kind of a vampire movie. It's about a girl with a grandfather with a past. So it's a little twist. And then I fly to Kentucky for Spawn of Scarefest in June, and then I'm shooting a scene. I play a therapist, and then I've got stuff in August and November. So it's starting to happen, and I'm happy to do it when I can get away.
Good,
that's awesome.
good way to stay busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps you young.
Definitely.
Exactly. Nick,
Um, Would you ever consider doing a cameo in a future Chainsaw project if you were asked to?
Oh, sure, especially if it's something that I thought, was, was good, for sure, for sure. I mean, it'd have to either they do a Benjamin Button on me, or I just I play a geezer like one of the guys in that truck, at the beginning of the, and that's another thing in that scene was one of my favorite guys of all time, John Henry Falk, and he's like an extra. He has like two lines, and I remember growing up in the Bronx, uh, and listening to him on the radio. He was blacklisted, but he was a guy with a lot of integrity, principles, and I just to this day going on the set and listening to his stories, it still brings me back. And oh, and another thing I forgot to say, I'm working on my autobiography, and I'm pretty excited because there's a lot of fun stuff, and it's like people say, how did a kid from the Bronx, and end up in the scariest movie of all time in Texas? So it kind of takes me back to my childhood, and then how I got to Texas, how I ended up in these movies, and just some crazy stuff.
That's amazing.
Now, it was
Yeah.
pretty early in your career when you started as Jerry in TCM. What did you do to prepare yourself for every day? Not having a script, kind of ad libbing all your lines. Like, how did you prepare, like the night before, the day of, to play that character?
I guess you just go with the flow. I mean, I had a concept. He's a wiseacre, wisecrack, and that was, I guess, my personality. You know, so I just went with it, and maybe that was good. Where people that's so prepared that they're not really in the moment, and not there. And I think that helped me not having to worry about the lines. It wasn't Gone with the Wind. I wasn't doing, As You Like It or King Lear. You know what I mean? So I had just to limit a couple of sentences here and there, but it just seemed to work. And that whole scene, I mean, in the van, I mean, that's crazy. You know, uh, what are you
Wow.
gonna do?
Yeah, that's crazy. Even like you weren't able to, like, some actors watch other people's performances and kind of inspire other characters into their character. And like back then, I mean, not everyone had Tubi or cell phones or the internet or even DVDs, VHS, to watch other had to go to
Yeah, very good point. I didn't know really have any role models,
yeah,
say, okay, I'm channeling so and so, or,
yeah,
uh, it just, maybe it was better that way, you
yeah,
know?
Yeah.
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 Because now everything's a copy off something.
Hmm.
Right, right,
Just about
right,
every
right.
character has been done, but you guys didn't have that. Especially with TCM being one of the first like majorly violent movies, I would say, for the mainstream audiences. I mean, there was Psycho and like movies like I Drink Your Blood that
Hmm.
were
Yeah,
graphic, but
yeah.
as far as this, I would say this is the first massacre movie where
Yeah, splatter. What is it called? Splatter movie.
yeah,
And
even
yeah,
though
and
there's
here's
not
the
that much blood and gore in it, it's
Yeah.
there's very little. And
now.
here's
I mean,
the other thing is, I used to take, I think, two trains or a bus to go to. I went to City College,
mhm,
uh, and I would read reviews of movies, and the reviewer was the guy by the name of Archer Winston, and
yeah,
he would give out stars, 1 star, 2 stars. When it came to Chainsaw, he basically said he hated the movie so much, he said it owed him stars. You know,
well,
well, he's dead. Chainsaw is now in MoMA Beyond Fest. It's considered one of the best movies ever made. It's so you just don't know. It just who could tell? Like a lot of us thought it wasn't even going to come out, and it comes out, develops an audience, and then it just has grown and grown and grown.
yeah,
My regret is that Gunner's not here, Marilyn's not here. She was my girlfriend in the movie, and we really and there's I mean, she's beautiful, but there's no intimacy in that movie, sadly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not even a kiss. And and it turned out, Marilyn's the final girl, the first final girl. And what people didn't realize, she's a very bright girl. She graduated cum laude, and here she's having to play a bubble gum, Brala's Bubblegum Girl, and she did an amazing job. I mean, they really wrecked her after that movie for what she went through. But
Yeah. Wow. So no Jerry Sally intimate scenes in the movie. Maybe they
sadly, no. Sadly, no.
no lost footage or anything like that.
How I wish. How I wish.
Oh man. Yeah.
And what I realized, because there was really, I felt no chemistry, but there was a lot going on in her life. She was having to balance a lot of stuff, so she came across as aloof. Then years ago, when we met at some of these Comic Cons, she was just so nice to me, and she was so lovely, and she said some nice things. In fact, I'll give you a scoop. We found some lost tapes that Marilyn did prior to she passed away shortly after those tapes were made, and so we're sifting through, and I'm hoping that some of them I'll be able to use in my autobiography. But she gives her take on what it was like filming, and I only saw the good things. I didn't see the wasted footage, the take after take after take, what it was like inside that house. I mean, it was miserable, and she had to go through all of that many, many times.
Wow. And after you were done, like you were done from the set, like you never came back to, even watch them or help out, behind the scenes.
With one is I didn't have the time. I
Oh,
was I was on a rafting trip with the kids, down, the Guadalupe River or whatnot. So I just didn't have that kind of time. Uh, I think John Dugan, who played Grandpa, he was on set. Maybe Bill, some of the people that were, on set for longer periods of time, but not my, not me. And then like Daniel Pearl and some of the sound guys that are still around, they were there for all of it.
yeah.
It's cool.
How many days do you think they filmed for?
I think it was about 30 days,
30?
26 to 30 days, yeah.
In
30
that?
days in that Texas heat. Oh,
Oh God.
Pretty
Yeah, and then
impressive.
they were also not they were, but where they rented the house was growing marijuana in the backyard. And so toward the end, that Ted's wife, Sally, was the caterer, and she made some brownies, and they were laced with marijuana. So they were stoned a lot of the time toward the end.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
yeah,
We're
yeah.
taking the marijuana plants, stuffing them in the
Ooh,
shirts.
yeah, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. So
And
is that
now, I mean, now we're it's the name of it is Quick Hill. I mean, everything having to do with that movie. People went, got spindles from the house. They got tar from. It's amazing what it meant to these folks to get all these whatever mementos and memorabilia. From the wallpaper. From the house.
Mm,
It means so much to the fans. So.
yeah.
It's wild. It's a great feeling that this movie has meant so much, to so many people.
yeah. Is there anything you could do during filming to like escape from the heat if you had to?
Uh, I thought so because there was a an RV out there, and after about 3 or 4 takes, they cut the get the girls' makeup and fix them up and whatnot. And I said, I see these girls got a good thing going. I said, what if I just slip out, and get in that trailer? And so after one of the takes, I get out ahead of them and I go into the trail. No sooner do I sit down when Dottie Pearl comes running over and says, Alan, there's nothing we can do for you. You got to get out of here. So, that was it for fixing me up. There's nothing they could do.
That's fantastic. So what are some of your favorite horror movies besides Texas Chainsaw Massacre? What's something that, scares you to this day?
Um, well, as a kid growing up, any of the Abbott and Costello movies,
Oh,
Meet Frankenstein, I mean, would freak me out. The Omen, Psycho, those, but for the most part, I haven't watched a lot of them. Although there's a new channel that I've done some podcasts. It's called Scream Therapy, and it's Villains in Therapy. And the lady by the name of Jayla Gray has asked me to, since my background is in social work and psychology, so I do an analysis of who have I done so far? Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Leatherface, and Freddy Krueger. So
Oh,
she's staggering these, and it's a lot of fun, coming up with. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of problems with these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the threat is there. You got abuse and molestation and crazy. It's the whole thing. The whole thing.
Amazing.
that's fantastic.
Alan, I want
Yeah.
to thank you so much for taking the time today to come on the show and join us and chat with us for an hour. That was very awesome.
Yeah, it's
I hope I've answered all your questions, and I
Oh,
hope I passed
definitely.
and I hope I
Yeah.
passed the audition.
Yeah, you're
Definitely
fantastic.
did.
You're hired.
Now,
Two thumbs up.
is this live or is this taped?
No, so it's pre-taped, so we'll post it up in a little bit.
Would you let me know so I can let my folks, my fans know, and
Yep.
yeah,
put it on my Facebook, and so we can have a link.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Anything, part of the reason we do this is to, help other filmmakers out, whether they're, writing, directing, producing, shooting, editing, whatever. Is there anything inspirational that Alan
Yeah, it
Danziger,
was, yeah, support these folks. I mean, it costs an arm and a leg, uh, to make a movie. And, sometimes they get panned and whatnot, but they're all trying, to do the best that they can. You know what I mean? And I think the arts and whatnot, should be supported in every way, in every way.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything you want to shout out before we end the broadcast?
Um, Not really. I mean, just all the fans, that have just been there, for me, and Chainsaw fans are absolutely the best. They really are.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they are the best.
Okay. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Take care.